Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're on the home stretch of our exploration of radio. And you know, I never thought about it this way, but when I was researching the cultural importance of radio between the years of 1930 and 1980, it became suddenly plain to me that the importance really lived two different 25-year lifespans, hence the two-parter that we're exploring together. And if you haven't seen part one, there'll be a link in the description box below. So as the mid-50s hit and TV was now doing the job of providing entertainment the way radio had done, but with picture, it has captured the spotlight position in our living rooms. But radio is still around. It's what's playing in the background of our bedrooms and kitchens as the family readies itself for the day. Because it tells us the news. It lets us know if we're going to need an umbrella that day or not, or if our prayers have really been answered and that overnight snow was heavy enough to have canceled school. Yep, in the average American home, radio was still the heartbeat and was about to become the backbeat too. I teased at the end of the last video that the teenager was now officially recognized as a consumer segment. What with weekly allowances and after-school jobs, these kids were spending machines. But I didn't mention a huge piece of this puzzle, the 45 RPM record. This changed everything. It had been introduced in 1949 by RCA when they simultaneously released 7 45 singles, but a considerable amount of time was needed for that new format to take root. First of all, those first 7 records included such disparate offerings as a kid's song, a country song, a classical piece, an R&B song, and a Yiddish song performed by a cantor. Talk about casting a wide net. Also, your record player in the living room only played 78 RPM. Or if you were lucky enough to have a new machine, it might play 78 and the new 33 1/3 long playing records that Columbia had introduced the year before. But now you were going to need a whole new piece of equipment for this little 45. New 45 RPM only jukeboxes that showed up in your local malt shop certainly helped to fan the flame, and by 55 there was enough critical mass so that when Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock was put on constant rotation on the radio, it sold 3 million units. Needing a way to prioritize all the new singles that we had to have, Billboard was kind enough to start the Hot 100 chart in '58. It was the great era of the record single. And wait, radio wasn't just an indoor pet anymore. A major game changer arrived in December of '54, just in time for the Christmas buying season, the transistor radio. Suddenly, radio became portable. You could take your music with you to the beach, to the park, or even just hanging out with friends. This portability amplified radio's cultural impact, especially with young people. Now, someone had to play all this stuff for us to get hyped about, and so enter the golden era of the personality disc jockey. Names like Alan Freed, Murray the K, and of course Dick Clark are legendary, but there was also Dave the Hullabalooer Hull at KRLA in Los Angeles and jockey Jack Gibson at WERD in Atlanta. And as the years went on, we would get acquainted with Casey Kasem, who would count down the American Top 40 every Sunday, and Wolfman Jack, who would host the great NBC TV show The Midnight Special in the '70s. But there was a coolness factor shift that started to happen by the late '60s and early '70s. Though it had been around for about 2 decades, FM radio was basically the land of classical music, educational programming, and mostly simulcasts of AM radio. But by the end of the '60s, the FM non-duplication rule was being fully enforced. This rule said that FM stations could no longer simulcast the majority of their day from their AM stations. This created the effect of a more experimental station programming, more, dare I say it, underground programming. I have a distinct, if impaired, memory of Jonathan the Weasel Gilbert, the DJ on WHFS, my local Washington, D.C. underground station, playing a whole side of a Fire Sign Theater record, followed by a whole side of a Frank Zappa record, followed by a half hour of audio from an old W.C. Fields movie. Not relegated to the AM under 3 minutes per song standards, it gave birth to the album-oriented rock format, and because FM could broadcast in stereo, it was the place to be. Now, you wouldn't be caught dead driving a car without an FM radio, and you pitied those who had to. And finally, in 1978, FM listenership was as large as AM for the first time. The trend would continue on until AM, over the decades, became the decimated wasteland that FM had once been. Looking back, radio's impact wasn't just about the music charts or sound quality, though. It was a thread woven into the fabric of our culture. Think about those families gathered around the radio listening to comedy shows together, and later breathlessly listening to news from the front lines of World War II, and then on to the birth of rock and roll and to the rise of FM stations. It wasn't just a medium, it was a cultural force that helped shape who we were as a society. What are your thoughts on the second era of radio? Are there any favorite DJs or stations you remember? Share your memories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell so as not to miss any of our adventures into the cultural history. And until the next time, tune in, turn on, but don't drop out. I'd miss you.